One day I'm gonna be everything I wanna be. I don't let it get the most of me. One day I'm gonna be free. I wanna be everything I'm gonna be. My future right in front of me. One day I'm gonna be free. I wanna be free. So let me be free. One day I'm gonna be free. Mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Yeah. One day I'm gonna be free. I'm standing at the crossroads, feeling like a lost soul. Don't know where I wanna go, but all I know is I wanna be free. They're telling me to let it be, but that just ain't in me, no. Jealousy and envy, but all I see is I wanna be free. See everything I wanna be, exactly what I'm gonna be. Don't let it get the most of me. Eventually, I'm gonna be free. See everything I wanna be, exactly what I'm gonna be. Yeah. One day I'm gonna be free. I'm gonna be free. Let me be free. One day I'm gonna be free. Mentally and physically, emotionally and spiritually. Yeah. One day I'm gonna be free. I told them take their aim off me. Stop trying to get a name off me. If they would just let me be, I'm gonna be free. I told them take them chains off me and throw away the locks and keys. If they would just let me be, eventually I'm gonna be free.
They're back.
What up, though? 7 days, we back again for another episode.
Wasn't me.
I know it wasn't you. Goblins over here. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. We got a good show for you tonight. We also have a guest that we're going to bring on later on, and we're going to tap down into that as well, because that's also something else that's going on that mainstream really isn't talking about, and we're going to dive into that as well. But everyone, hit that like button. That's what's going to get us out here on this proper algorithm and get this out and spread it out to as many people as we can. So we're going to jump into this for tonight. So right now we're watching a situation that could shift the total global balance that we know of. And most people don't even realize how close we are to that moment right now. So the United States has seized an Iranian ship near the Strait of Hormuz. And there's also been word today that there's been several cargo ships that was hit as well. 3 that was hit this morning. And the Strait of Hormuz, as everyone knows, is one of the most critical oil routes in the world. Mm-hmm. Iran is calling it an act of piracy for seizing that tanker, but at the same time, a fragile ceasefire is already on the verge of collapsing. And we're going to jump into that here in a little bit. But here's what's making this even more concerning. The peace talks that was expected to happen between the U.S. leadership, including Vice President J.D. Vance, did not happen. So no reports are saying the reason why he didn't show up. But the Iranian officials are already questioning what that means. And from their perspective, they think that the U.S. is basically trying to pull a fast one as to why they didn't send J.D. Vance, but they sent Wyckoff and Kushner. So now we've got a situation where negotiations are uncertain. The trust is already low, and military tension is rising at the same time. And where all this connects is because if these talks fail and the tensions continue to rise around the Strait of Hormuz, it doesn't just stay a regional issue. This becomes something that affects energy, affects the oil, affects the global economy, and is going to affect everyday life for everyone across the globe. So the real question is, are we watching a breakdown of democracy and diplomacy, or are we watching a moment that pushes everything over to this next phase? So we're going to break this down as much as we can based on the information that we were able to gather tonight. So what we're seeing right now is starting a major move by the U.S. Navy. Like I said, a cargo ship carrying Iranian flag was intercepted and seized near the Strait of Hormuz. Now, the U.S. officials are claiming that this vessel was connected to Iran's missile and weapons programs, and that it was attempting to bypass restrictions tied to the ongoing conflict, which they later found out that the good old people of China had a nice few gifts in there that we'll have Aaron talk about it here in a little bit. But from the U.S. perspective, this wasn't about enforcement. It was sending a message that certain lines are not to be crossed, especially in such a sensitive region. But from Iran's perspective, it is something entirely different. They're calling it illegal. They're calling it an act of piracy. And more importantly, they're framing it as a direct violation against the current ceasefire agreements that had already been set up. And this is where things start to get dangerous, because when both sides interpret the same action as completely different views, the risk of miscalculation goes way up. On one side sees enforcement, other side sees provocation. This isn't just about a ship. This isn't just about the cargo ships that happen today. This is about power, control, and who gets to dictate what happens.
They both think they've got leverage. So that's the hard part.
Exactly. So what we've been seeing, and like we've seen today about the 3 cargo ships, and then we see where they were talking about that the U.S. has seized this tanker. But in the midst of seizing that tanker, when they went through and checked, then they found some nice little gifts in there, and everything that was on that ship was not what they said was on that ship. So we're gonna let Aaron start that off and just kind of tell what the nice little goodies was that was found in that ship.
Well, let me get to that in my second part, but let me start off with first saying that both sides during the ceasefire has taken a chance to rearm themselves and come up with new plans, new tactics. And you can tell that Iran feels, based upon how they rearmed themselves, that we're getting ready to go with a land invasion. Right now, they took the time to rebuild the infrastructure, power lines down, bridges, destroyed roads. They're rebuilding that. They're restocking food, water, and medicine because they realize we're going to go to siege warfare on them. They bought new mine systems. I just couldn't find out did those systems come from China or did they come from Russia. They bought new anti-tank and anti-ship weapons, which I do know the anti-ship weapons came from China, but I don't know where the anti-tank weapons came from. But again, they must feel that they're about to be land invaded to be buying anti-tank weapons. They bought a new one-way attack drone system, and they bought long-range ballistic and cruise missiles. And some of them ballistic missiles is rumored to be able to reach continental United States. Now, here's where the tactic is getting ready to change. Before, they had enough uranium to make between 16 to 20 bombs once it was enriched enough. But they made a statement in the last 2 days that they can make backpack nukes and walk those into U.S. malls and set them off. And that's a game changer right there. And that's a serious threat to be making at this time.
I haven't even heard of that threat, but that threat right there definitely holds water for sure.
Yeah, because Russia's backpack nukes, a lot of them came up missing and they were never found. So I'm suspicious that they found their way into Iranian hands right now. But
also, just one thing I wanted to say on the 3 ships and the suspected one. It's actually 2 ships that the United States have boarded and taken over of their shit so far. And then we had 3 cargo ships, not necessarily U.S. flagged, but just U.S. We had the Iran side shooting at the engine, at the actual ships, disabling the first ship with, hitting with 3 rounds. I forget what the exact round is called, but went and penetrated through their hull and into the engine room where it exploded one of the main engines or whatever the case is. And then the second one, I don't think they disabled like that. But so far we've had 2 of those that we've boarded.
Yeah, and then what I want to go into right now is what I'm going to call the setup for World War III, because we know that we go from currency wars to trade wars, and then we go from trade wars into kinetic wars. That's usually why I feel that Bishop's title for the show today couldn't be more timely, because the next step is going to be probably real war. Mike, if you don't mind, play that one video for me, if you don't mind.
Sure, the video. Gotcha. Give me one second. Let me bring that up here. Make sure the audio's on.
So car makers are now in talks with the Trump administration about manufacturing weapons and ammunition for the U.S. Pentagon officials say they want to assess how quickly these car makers could actually shift personnel and factories into weapons manufacturing. This is because the Ukraine and Iran conflicts have drained some of our supplies. So this is an urgent thing that's pretty interesting to watch. General Motors is involved, Ford is involved, and GE Aerospace and machine maker Oshkosh.
Yes, and I actually heard about this briefly, not before hearing any of this, just on the mainstream. I did hear that there is some announcement of automakers being involved in now helping with weapons.
Right. And I mean, you're talking new machines, you're talking about retooling and making new dies. Then you got to retrain your personnel to and change the quality structure because you're making war material. You're talking a considerable investment per company to make that happen. But why I'm calling this the setup for World War III is because we know right now the draft age is 42 years of age. They've changed it as almost as if we're in a major war right now, which has not been officially declared. The president is negotiating with corporations to start making war materials because on the THAAD systems, we're down 50% on those missiles. The Patriots are down 40%. We're down a total of 40% on all of our smart munitions. So if this escalates into World War III, we want to have these corporations already in position to start manufacturing. I mean, in my area of Dayton, a company called Inland used to make the M1 carbines during World War II. And unless these companies have manufactured war material since then, I have not heard of such a thing happening inside the United States since
I
World
thought we
War
did
II.
that in World War II. Yeah, exactly. Right. That's what I was thinking. Same thing.
So we're putting 2 ducks in a row right there. We got 36 U.S. electronic aircraft positioned in Israel right now. Those are used to blind anti-air and defense systems. We're staging carriers outside of Iran right now. We captured a gift that China was giving to Iran that was to be weaponized. What we don't know is, was it nuclear material or is it a bioweapon of some type? But whatever the material was, it was to be weaponized. NATO is considering military presence and oversight on the transit routes to and from Turkey right now. It's rumored that Iran is smuggling oil to Turkey, and then Turkey is smuggling weapons to Iran. So NATO is considering a military presence to interdict that, which the Russians, as of today, is saying they're going to almost consider that to be an act of war.
Man, Turkey does a lot of things where they're talking on both sides of their mouth and
Yep.
playing both
Yep.
sides. They're infamous for that shit. But anyway, sorry.
No, you're good. You're good, man. You're correct with that. Iran is calling for everyone to leave Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, and Kuwait immediately. They're also telling, and this was as of today, they're also telling all sailors on ships near the Strait of Hormuz or El Mandab that they must be ready to abandon ship. So it sounds like there's going to be a clear escalation that's getting ready to happen. U.S. and Israel have re-coordinated and have rearmed, and they're ready to resume this war. Japan is dropping the restrictions, or the restrictions are being dropped on Japan today, where they're not allowed to have a military above a certain level. So Japan is getting ready to increase their military, which China said today they're going to consider that to be an act of war. Then on Monday, China said that their cabinet is meeting and that they are considering stopping all shipments of all material to the United States. Now, we already know they've stopped the sale of gunpowder and chemicals to make gunpowder. They stopped shipping plastics. And there was a third item that I can't remember that they stopped shipping. But right now, they're talking about stopping shipping of everything. This is the world's largest producer of goods to the world, and they're not going to ship to us if that's the way they decide to go. Now, China, due to the Belt and Road Initiative, which is the new Silk Road trade route that excludes the United States, they claim that they can still make $3 trillion a year off of trade off the Belt and Road Initiative. Now, right now, because Trump had made mention something about maybe using a nuke inside Iran, the world is concerned that the U.S. was preparing to use a targeted biological or radiological threat inside of Iran right now. France and Poland themselves are having joint nuclear war games that they're getting ready to do between them. So that means that they're preparing for war. And then Iran also issued a warning to Jordan, UAE, Kuwait, and Saudi Arabia that they must not shoot down any missiles or drones coming from Iran or Yemen. They said if they do, they're going to consider them to be part of this Zionist coalition, and they're going to face complete and total annihilation. That's a quote.
Wow. And that's they're stating basically if you shoot any of our shit down, you're siding with the Zionist side of the equation.
Right.
And wow, that's a heavy statement from those
It
from
is.
that country. Absolutely. I mean, look at the Gulf states, right? I mean, those are the ones that are really on our side, you know, and I mean, truthfully, I hope that we keep them on our side after this whole thing is done. But at this point, I think that they may even call us out and be like, you know what? You know, you said you were going to protect us. You said you were going to do this kind of thing. But look at what's happened since, you know, unfortunately. So I don't know. It's kind of a big up in the air thing right now. That's why we're hyper focusing, watching every minute of it.
And see, that's the reason I'm saying this. The title of the show can be more timely. I mean, the next step is going to be war, and we're heading toward it, whether people want to see that or admit to that. China is not going to continue to allow themselves to be choked out no more than Japan allowed themselves to be choked out during World War II. We had an oil embargo on them, and they came out swinging and they attacked us.
So are you talking about on a world level, like where we may even see some complications due to on a global scale because of oil, for instance, let's just say, that could escalate us into a theoretically a world war, right?
Right. I mean, Europe is running out by the end of the month. Australia will be another one. Japan has no oil wells whatsoever.
Thailand.
Yeah. I mean,
there's all the islands. Yep.
Yep. there's a bunch of countries that don't produce oil, and this is going to have a major impact on their economy. Now, like we said in the last show, Trump is saying the U.S. is prepared to sell, and they're willing to let Venezuela sell to them, but they got to do it in the petrodollars. Not the Chinese yuan is not going to be accepted as the currency.
So it has to be done by the U.S. dollar.
Right. And see, right now, China said today that if there's no freedom of navigation, because they heard how we intercepted those tankers, if there's no freedom of navigation of oil, then they're going to have to interject militarily. The U.S. is making moves to close off the Asian area from getting oil from any other continent. And they said that this means that China will have to close down their production lines or make an agreement with America using the petrodollar. And we know China don't want to do that. So that's the reason why China's threatening to shut down all exports to the United States at this time. But I'm going to stop there for right now.
Yeah, I don't think they can really afford to do that. I mean, it seems like what we got here is you got a lot of you got a lot of people that's talking right now, and they're throwing. You know, I mean, you got Russia throwing a threat here, you got China throwing a threat here. You know, everybody is basically impacted by this one way or the other. Okay, now with the so you're talking to, so let's just take China, for instance. Okay, so China making a threat because they can't go through there freely, and like, okay, so you don't let us go through freely, then we're gonna send our military. Okay, so are you not having this conversation with Iran and telling them the same thing? Why are you just telling the U.S. to back off?
Right.
See what I'm saying? Because that's a two-way street you got there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
you're right.
It's like, okay, this side here back off, if this side here back off. Now they keep talking about this 10-point plan, and at first they try to say, well, you know, I mean, Trump agreed to this 10-point plan, and then now he's backing off of it, which I see some reports say that he did, some say that he didn't. But we talked about this 10-point plan last week, and I put out exactly what that 10-point plan is, and nothing in that plan was beneficial to us at all. You know what I mean? That was all a full one-sided plan. They're not going to agree to that.
No, and no side's going to agree to what's being proposed,
Right.
because they both think they've got the leverage, and that's the problem. Is when you both think that you've got the leverage, that's when the issue happens, right? This is where we come at a stalemate. Unfortunately, they kind of win on a geographical level for the strait itself. Now, the strait is not owned by Iran; it's an international strait, right? That's a shipping lane for a global economy. They just happen to be on a geographical level an advantage that they've got right there. That's their whole coast right there. We don't have the United States coastline right there. Otherwise, we would have the advantage on that. Now, do we have the leverage over on a military level? Yes, of course. Absolutely. We demolish them. But here's where they know they can't win that, but they can win on dragging this out and making this a long, very expensive process for the United States. And that's essentially where we're looking at. Like, we may lose the war. Well, we'll win the war on a military level, but we're going to lose on a political and a financial level as well. And real quick, speaking of finances, got $10 coming in from Papa Penguin saying China has economic and manufacturing power. They have zero ability to project military power beyond the horizon aside from nukes. And they ain't uncorking that bottle over this. Yeah, that's very, very true, by the way, Papa Penguin. And thank you for the 10 spot. Very much appreciate that. It goes a long way. Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Now let's talk about this oil right quick, since we know that everything is primarily situated with that. So somewhere between 8 to 13 million barrels of oil per day is being disrupted. Now, that might not sound like a lot at first, but it is. So for the context of that, the U.S. alone uses about 20 million barrels of oil every single day. So what are we talking about here? It's potentially using the equivalent of half of America's daily oil consumption not once, but every single day over this time period. Now, this is where the bigger picture starts to come into focus, because at first, it may not feel like everything has changed. Markets still look stable. Oil prices may not have fully reached yet. Everything seems slightly normal. I mean, you do have the elevated gas prices, stuff like that, but for the most part, everything seems pretty normal. But that's where the danger actually comes into play, because sometimes the impact doesn't hit like a slow leak. Sometimes it hits like a wave. And at first, we're standing here looking at, for an example, if you're standing here, you're looking at the ocean and it looks calm and everything feels fine. But in the horizon, something is building. Mm-hmm. And by the time you realize how big that wave is, it's already too late to react. And that's how this situation kind of feels. The effort of this conflict may already be in motion, and we're not seeing the full impact of this yet, which is, there's still a whole lot more to go with this. So the real question becomes in this is, how bad of an oil shortage is it right now? And we was talking about which parts of the world is feeling this first, that Aaron just talked about, because this all goes back to one critical location, which is, of course, the Strait of Hormuz. Now, I was looking up something the other day, which caught my attention, and we was talking about the oil, and we was talking about the oil prices. And you know how you say, like, before this started, oil was sitting at what, like $56 a barrel or whatever, and now it's well over 100. But then I found out something dealing with that. They kind of changed that whole thought process dealing with that. So when you think about the prices of oil, what we're usually seeing is something called Brent futures. Are you familiar with what that is?
I've heard of it, but I'm not that familiar.
Okay, so let me explain to you. So Brent futures is basically the paper price.
Right.
That's the price traders are paying today for oil that will be delivered sometime in the future.
Okay.
Right. Yeah,
So,
there's a difference of when they sell that versus when it gets delivered, right?
Exactly. So that number is based on expectation, what the market thinks supply and demand will be down the line. Now, on the other side, you have what they call a dated Brent, and that's the price of the oil actually. That's the physical delivery right now.
Like the spot price.
Right.
Right.
And this is the oil that's being loaded into the ships, hitting the refineries right now. And that price reflects that's actually happening in the physical market. That's not the actual
futures prediction. Right.
Okay. So for instance, if the oil that we're looking at right now, let's say it's $100 a barrel, the actual dated Brent price is well over $200. Now, the problem that we're going to face here is when that paper price and that dated price starts coming together.
Meeting together. Right.
Exactly. Now, with that paper price can be manipulated, which is that's what they've been talking about now. That's how the markets and stuff dealing with oil has been able to be stabilized, because you basically paper whipping it. That's not the actual price.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what they're putting out to be able to stabilize. But that's not the actual real price.
Well,
because you have people in Europe right now that's paying well over $200 a barrel for this oil.
Well, that's just a supply and demand issue for sure on that. Anyways, real quick, I got Papa Penguin coming in with the $50 real quick. Money comes first here. Trump is conflating military strength with economic and manufacturing power. As the saying goes, everyone's speaking English, but not the same language. The West is bearing the brunt of his straight policy, and the long-term fallout will be messy. Absolutely. I got to agree with that. And thank you very much, Papa Penguin, for the big 50 whale, by the way. Very much appreciate that.
Yeah, so that's what we're looking at. So it's a lot of different things coming into play, and trying to figure out what's what. Dealing with all this is like one big cluster. You know what I mean? Is you hearing on one side over here, then you hearing something else on this side, and you still trying to figure out, what's real, what's not, and how this is really going on. Because just like with these quote unquote talks that they were going to have, and the biggest issue dealing with those talks is that they didn't want to talk to Jerry Kushner. They did not, and Steve Wyckoff. They wanted to talk to J.D. Vance. They wanted him to be there, and they kept saying for days that he was on his way. He was on his way there, and he never showed. So, so on the Iranian side, they were putting out different things like, okay, so if you're coming, it doesn't take you that long to get here. It don't take you days to get here. When you say that you're getting ready to board the plane now, it shouldn't take you days to get here. So why are you not here yet? And then, of course, they were like, okay, so we're just not going to send anybody. This agreement, even if they came to an agreement, it's not going to be anything that's going to be done like right now anyway.
I agree. Now, AB, one thing I just wanted to point out is one thing that they did talk about in the media today, something that I reported on, is that J.D. Vance will be at the talks this evening in Pakistan regarding this. So this is supposed to be happening this evening. So we'll see what happens.
Did they actually send people from Iran over there? Because they said that there wasn't.
I have no idea.
So
honestly, all I know is the report that I'm reporting on, what I'm telling you right here, right now, is that they had that planned. JD was going to fly over to Pakistan, do the whole hotel thing that they did this recent time kind of thing where they have their people and our people at the hotel. Supposedly is supposed to be happening tonight. And then I told my audience, anything that comes out of this, I'll report on it in the morning. But that's supposedly what is happening.
Okay. So let's go back and talk about what's the actual global impact of who actually benefits from this. And we're already starting to see early signs of this being a truly globally impacted situation. So you have the oil prices that have begun to rise. You got the financial markets as part of the Middle East is reacting negatively to the uncertainty. Anytime there's instability in a region, this is critical, and the markets respond to that very quickly. At the same time, you have the U.S. military that's making moves that suggest that they may be preparing for a longer situation.
Right.
This continued use and extension of certain aircraft and military assets signal that it isn't being treated as a short-term issue. This is preparation behind the scenes. On both sides. It kind of seemed like this whole ceasefire thing was like we was talking about before, was just being able to restock and regroup.
Recollect. Hey, you go in your corner, we'll go in our corner. You get your missiles up, we'll get our shit up. We're good. We'll meet back up here in 2 weeks.
Right. And this is where you ask the deeper question: who benefits from this kind of tension? Because in situations like this, there are always multiple layers. You have the defense industries, of course, that because they have to increase their demand. You got energy market shifts. You have political leverage changes, and now that doesn't mean that everything is planned or intentional. Not saying that
for sure,
but it does mean that whenever there's a conflict, there's also entities that position themselves to gain from it. And
of course. Of course.
Yeah. And understanding that dynamic is key to understanding what this big picture is, because war is money.
Yes, and narratives change with money.
Exactly. So you have a lot of this a lot of this stuff is going on. I was listening to a program before the show started, and they were talking about several of these countries are now starting to ration food. They're also rationing energy. They're turning off the power at certain times.
It's becoming a humanitarian issue.
Right.
100%.
Right. This is slowly becoming a global situation. You see that a lot of the airliners that's over in Europe, they're shutting everything down because they don't have enough jet fuel.
The jet fuel prices alone over there are like, hey, we can't even afford to fly, meaning from the airline side.
Right. So that's also going to be an issue, So people they'll plan on taking a trip to Europe here in the now or the distant future, you're not.
Yeah, just wait it out a little bit. Everybody just, if you had plans to go to Europe this, summer or something like that, just delay that a few years. You'll be all right. You'll still go. Relax.
Right. It just ain't gonna be right now though. So I'm gonna ask you, Aaron, what should us regular people be looking at right now?
Well, let me say this. Along with higher prices at the pumps, farmers had to plant their crops just recently, and some of them would be planting right after Mother's Day when there's no more frost. They're having to plant without the proper amount of fertilizer, so they cannot plant properly. China's not shipping fertilizer to us, and Iran certainly isn't shipping the fertilizer. So what we're going to be looking at is lower crop yields, which is going to mean higher food prices. I mean, right now, between June to October, we're looking at a 20% increase in food and a 15% increase in energy such as natural gas, gas at the pumps, and
so really
your
that's
electric
happening
bill.
from fertilizer though. A lot of that
Not from fertilizer, but from oil.
not.
But the fertilizer is going to go on to the food.
Right.
If you don't have enough fertilizer to fertilize your crops in the ground, because the grounds are greatly depleted, that's going to be lower crop yields. So if the food prices increase between June to October 20%, when the crop reports come out at the end of October, and it indicates that there's a food shortage, which there will be, and we don't know if we're going to have any droughts over the summer or any weather anomalies that can affect food production in our country. But either way it goes, it's going to be lower crop yields. So from October to December, we can expect to see a possibility of another food increase when those crop reports come in short this year. And keep in mind, China and Japan bids the highest for our beef and our crops. So before the American public's going to see it, greed is going to be into play, and whoever can bid the highest for the food is going to get it. And I'll stop with that.
Yeah, you're right. The fertilizer does play a big part. I had seen something just last week where they were saying that right around this time here is where the farmers actually go out with the fertilizer to put into the ground before they are able to plant. And that them not being able to do that is going to cause huge food shortages. And like I said, that's global. That's not just something that we're going to be suffering here. That's going to be suffering everywhere.
Right. And then the cost of diesel has gone up, and that's ridiculous. I mean, the tractors run off of diesel. A lot of old farm trucks run on diesel, and then our semis run on diesel. So the farmers are saying they cannot afford to plant properly right now because of the rising costs of everything.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, there was they were talking about even the fertilizer that they actually have here, that they already have on stock here, has already risen price-wise. It's already
Definitely.
risen well over 40%.
Right.
What they already have, and what's already in stock now is nowhere compared to the amount that they're going to actually need. So so a lot of these farmers are starting to that said they're gonna have to try to improvise and do the best they can to be able to do that. But this is going to be it's going to be tough times ahead.
Definitely.
A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about Cuba. We were talking about the power grid, the blackouts, and the food shortages and all of that. Do you think that what could be coming now in these other countries could be somewhat similar to what's going on there right now?
That's always the lead. I mean, what we see happening in Europe and other countries within 2 months' time automatically starts happening here. So I say that would be a good way to measure what's coming, is just see what's going on somewhere else. But I'll stop there.
Yeah, when I was looking into that, it says that Cuba's entire national grid has failed multiple times since just March.
Yeah, it's like nonstop.
And at one point, the whole country went dark. So you had blackouts that lasted 15 to 22 hours a day, and some regions went like 24 plus hours without power. Then you had, not having the power, not having the gas because of the embargo. You had over 200,000 people that lost access to water due to the outages, because of course those water treatment plants depend on electricity, so no power, no pumping. And then you had the garbage that was piling up because the trucks didn't have fuel, which in turn can't flush the toilet. People, waste in the street, stuff like that. This is when you hear the reports that over in Europe that they had less than 10 days of oil and less than 30 days of jet fuel, and they having to do rationing and cutting electricity and stuff like that. This is basically, if you look at Cuba, this is basically the same thing. This is actually going on now, kind of like a precursor of what could happen in other countries if this doesn't get taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
Would you not agree?
I mean, sadly, that island is that whole civilization there. 10 million people on the small scale. They say anywhere from 9 to 11 million people in Cuba. And imagine being 10 million people deep and you guys are out of power. Every city in America, any civilization in America, if that happened, the amount of media coverage that would happen from that, especially longer than just an hour or two. These guys really went out without power for, long time. So we're not just talking a day or two. They've had a lot of issues, 10 million people deep.
Mm-hmm. Being the fact that we're talking about, like,
Cuba.
we're initially talking about Iran, we're talking about these other countries, but we also talking about Cuba because Cuba happens to be going through what these other countries could possibly be coming to.
Absolutely. Easily.
So we got a guest that we're gonna add on, but I'm gonna give you his bio so everybody knows who this guy is. And his name is Chuck Modiano. I hope I didn't tear his last name up. But he is a DC-based social justice and journalist, dedicated into exposing power, policing, and fascism. He covers protests with the focus on amplifying media ignored voices, just like we do, and traditional and in social media. Some of his notable coverage includes the anti-war in DC, Free Palestine protests, police brutality, which was Ferguson, Baltimore, Standing Rock, DC, global coverage in Cuba, Ireland, London, Greece, Ukraine, and also when they had the supremacy thing going on in DC, in Charlottesville, the J6 and etc. He currently co-hosts the Collision, which is like where sports and politics basically collide.
That's cool. I like that.
On WFPW Radio, is a contributing author to Killing Trayvons and Football Culture and Power, and also a sports columnist for New York Daily News, Deadspin.
We got a highly distinguished man on this show. That's awesome.
Everywhere. Until that, his entity was basically sold in private. But this is actually a very, very good person that we're gonna have on the show tonight. That can also, he was on the ground in Cuba doing his time, doing humanitarian, and he can kind of give us a light as to what they're not telling us. What is it that they didn't show us on TV? And kind of give us a good
boots on the ground experience.
Right, what's there and what's the potential of this happening not only in these other countries but also here. So let's welcome Chuck Modiano.
Let's get it.
Appreciate that.
I hope I didn't turn your last name up, man.
No, you didn't. You got it just right. Thank you.
Okay.
It's great to be here.
I would have messed it all up, by the way. I'm illiterate, so.
Yeah, listen, you got it just right. And as I said to you before the show, I was listening to your show a couple of times, and I walk away learning more listening to your show than anything I put on in corporate media. Absolutely.
Man, that's a humongous W. So thank you for that.
So you were in Cuba.
Yeah.
So kind of tell everybody exactly what you were doing and what you saw there.
Well, we were part of a humanitarian mission. I'm DC based, and I went with a team as part of the Nuestra America convoy, because what's happened is, America's had an embargo on Cuba for decades, 60 years, which has had a terrible effect. And that's always been the case. But it's been escalated to now include fuel, particularly after Maduro was kidnapped. So now it's affecting the grid. Now it's affecting the buses. People can't take a bus, go where they are. The people are without electricity. So we went down on a humanitarian mission to bring food, to bring medical supplies. Medical supplies are important because if you're in the hospital and there's a blackout, that's a life or death situation right there. And that has happened. People have died.
I was in a position where if I didn't have power, I would actually physically die. So yes, I totally get it.
I want to go on, but I want to hear tell me how that would have happened.
Well, drunk driver, severed my leg
snap.
off,
Okay.
You know what I mean? And so I died 4 times, actually. Internal bleeding, external bleeding, and I 25 emergency blood transfusions, if that tells you anything.
So if your hospital had a blackout, we wouldn't be talking right now.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So yeah, real life. Glad you're here. Glad there was no blackout. And that's real because, people are dying from those blackouts. And even when I was there was a blackout. There were a couple of blackouts. And it's a problem. It's a huge problem. Now, since then, this was at the end of March. I went for 5 days at the end of March to deliver these supplies. I also go as a journalist, so I wanted to interview Cubans. But since that time, there's a little relief as Russia is coming with some fuel and China's coming with some fuel and solar panels. We came with solar panels as well as part of this convoy. Solar panels is very important here because I interviewed a Cuban who had put up solar panels and said it made a big difference. And I said, well, how many, homes have solar panels in Cuba? And he said, probably 10%. And if you're in a situation, and if you're coming with aid and you bring someone solar panels, now that's just not solving a problem right then and there. That's helping long-term sustainability.
Yeah, 6 months from now, you can think about some.
Exactly.
Right. What about today, mother?
Yeah. So, I thought that was really important. Another thing that came out yesterday, like getting medical supplies, food, aid, was I was interviewing some Cubans, and they said, wait, if we come back, what do you think you need? And he said, soccer balls and basketballs and footballs. I said, really? He said, there's
Morale.
something interesting that none of this store, no place where we could get it. And if we do have a soccer ball or something, it's in very expensive in a hotel, like $60. And we just want the kids to play. And, just that was something odd that stuck out. But I think it's worth mentioning. So I thought the trip was very important because what it was saying is that America is instituting this blockade, this very unpopular blockade. And let me put a fine point on how unpopular it is. It may be controversial in America, blockade. It's not controversial around the world. When the UN votes, the votes come in 185 to two countries, or another year 193 to two countries, or another year 187 to two countries. And could you guess the two countries?
Oh, I absolutely can. United States and Israel.
Bam! Those are the two countries. So because the United States has veto power, a horrible rule made after the Geneva Convention in 1948. The United States could veto the world, in a sense, be the dictator of the world, that the entire world could say, lift this blockade. But United States, nope, we don't want to. Too bad. It would be the equivalent if we had one senator, I don't know, say Ted Cruz. And Ted Cruz said, you know what, I don't like that legislation. And 99 senators are for it. And Ted Cruz said, nope, we don't want it. We're not going to go with it. That's what international quote unquote law looks like. It's really in many ways a U.S. dictatorship. So I want people to know how unpopular this is in a global sense. And so the thinking of the convoy was, well, we don't want the American government to represent the American people. Now, the thing you have to know about any sanctions is that the second thing is, if America or anyone else doesn't like a leader of a country or a leader's politics of a country, that's not who sanctions hurt. They hurt regular people like you and me, just trying to eat, just trying to get by. Whoever's a leader in a country, they're going to be fine. They got a generator, okay? They're going to be good. It's regular people who get punished. So in essence, what sanctions do is they say, we're going to starve your people to death, regular people, until you bend the knee to our will. So we felt it was incumbent to come in with supplies and with we came with 6,300 tons of food and supplies and solar panels and those things. And there's another mission happening, I think, this week, and there will be more in addition to what might be coming from Russia and China. So we just look at it as, honestly, I just look at it as, if I see my neighbor starving, I don't want them starving. It's just as simple as that. So it was a very good experience to learn from. And I have to say this, in interview after interview, when I said, how do you feel about America and the blockade? They would explain the effects of the blockade. And then they would say, the American people, we love. The American government, we don't.
Yep.
And they would make that distinction because their interactions with Americans are usually quite positive who come there, whether they're coming there to bring aid, whether they're coming there Cuba has an Alzheimer's drug that they've developed to reverse Alzheimer's that we can't get here, but Americans go to Cuba to get this drug. This
Americans
is how sanctions.
are great. They're
What's
great at
that?
spending money. They're great at spending money. Americans.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
American people, they're like, hey, we're not upset with you guys. We're
Yes.
upset with the government. Right.
Yes. And that precedes Trump, by the way. But Trump has escalated it to include fuel. And once you hit fuel, it's on another level.
Yeah, that's where I call it's kind of a two-tier system, regards to war and escalation. And the first level is what we experienced the first couple of weeks, and then once you see infrastructure going down, such as bridges, stuff like that, any type of energy, stuff like that, obviously is where you're escalating into that second level. And that second level is basically where it affects the global level, not just the two parties at odds.
I mean, that's exactly right. And I don't think people even fully understand sanctions. Sanctions is such a clean word because it murders people. Like when I was down there, they said, take your money with you, as much cash with you. I said, why? I can't give anyone Venmo or Cash App. There's no way for me to give somebody $10 in an electronic way. If I ran out of cash I'm screwed. No credit cards, no nothing. And this is like one tiny inconvenience that stops all trade. So if another country wants to help out Cuba and they're fearing America's wrath, and America does have a very big wrath, they're not going to mess with Cuba. I'm sorry. Listen, I want to help you out with this oil, but listen, we got our own stuff to worry about, and we're going to get our own sanctions. So
Yes,
it's like in a way, and I'm very clear about this. America, when we use sanctions, and that may be over in a few years because the dollar is crumbling, but when America uses sanctions, it's like a mob boss saying, you know what? I'm going to come for your daughter. I know where your daughter lives. And if you don't do what I want, I'm going to show a picture of your daughter. We all seen that movie. And in every movie we ever seen, we're like, yo, that's messed up. We knew that was a villainous act.
right.
But somehow we don't perceive sanctions in the same way we look at a mob boss who's threatening someone's family if they don't comply. But that's what sanctions is. And Lancet came out with a report last year looking at a 50-year study of 1971 to 2021 that the sanctions caused 38 million deaths over that period, over 6 Holocausts over that period. And most of those sanctions were led by America and NATO.
And I believe those numbers actually. I've never heard those numbers, but I do believe it. When it comes down to sanctions, I look at it as, I don't know. They're trying. The reason why they get away with it in that aspect, the way that you're talking about, is because it to them and to the way they sell it is like it's righteous. Hey, these terrorists are going to be cut off, essentially, right? And so that's how it's an easy sell to anybody. But they really don't know, not just like who it's affecting immediately, but on the long term, who else it affects in the region, whatever, blah, 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 right? So, yeah.
Right. And one stat I got to tell you, people just think like, older people die, the 60 to 80 range, like when it might have happened around COVID. Half of all deaths are 0 to 5 years old because, infants are very, prone to, if you don't get the nutrition you need very early on, you can die, particularly 0 to 1. And 0 to 5 are half of all the deaths in those 38 million study, and people would be shocked. And those certainly aren't people who are having, machine guns and fighting in a battle. And so it's really important to understand the difference of punishing civilians as collective punishment, which is a war crime, versus I'm going after a military personnel, right? These are not the same things.
So I got a question, Chuck, real quick.
Sure.
Not to go off the rails too much here, but just asking, how long were you there in Cuba for? I mean, genuinely, I'm curious.
I was only there for 5 days, and I'm going to go back, but yeah, I was there for 5 days, and I think
what year? What year?
Oh, it was last month. I just came back last month because of the fuel shortage, right? That's why we went, because
and
of
the blackouts. I mean, well, the blackouts are of course going to be
the blackouts.
Logical. You actually saw some of that go down.
Yeah, I saw. I went out to film during a blackout. I was running into people during that blackout, and then on the way back, they took my phone too. They wanted to get my phone and some other journalist's phone. So I was getting a moment of understanding where we're going and where this country is going as far as surveillance.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's great that you visited.
I actually have the video when they took your phones, so we'll play it right quick and then let you comment on it.
Yo, this is Lavish and many other people from the Nuestra convoy. We just returned from Cuba and landed in. Yo, this is Lavish and many other people from the Nuestra convoy. We just returned from Cuba and landed in Miami. We're in the international airport right now. 18 out of the 20 of us had our phones taken. We were all detained by Border Patrol and interrogated for, I think, about 3 hours about what exactly we were doing in Cuba, even though they know exactly what we were doing, which is delivering 30 tons of humanitarian, much-needed aid to the Cuban people. Additionally, the last 6 people that they took were the black people. And they just had us in there until Chris finally spoke up and was like, yo, this is a bad look for y'all. We about to sue you. Then they started expediting and getting us through, but they took all of our phones. I don't know, any other words? Yeah, we still have 2 or 3 people in there that were with us, and we're waiting on them right now. We're all in solidarity with all of our comrades. We're here together right now, so yeah.
They took photos of every page in my journal. Not much, but they did do that. They took laptops too. And they were joking about. We heard.
Wait, they took your laptop?
They took my laptop. They took his laptop, Ron's laptop.
Fuck.
They were joking about how many of us from the delegation they could interrogate. We overheard them. They were really kind of harassing Katie Halper, the journalist.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just blatant harassment and like out of cruelty, really. And
The
just
3 in my room kept shitting on the Cuban people.
Really?
They kept saying, like, you know the Cubans don't fucking want you there. You know y'all got bad press. You know they think y'all just taking advantage of the Cuban people. Yeah, they just kept shitting. Maybe 10 consecutive comments about how Cubans want Marco Rubio and Cubans fucking hate us.
Oh, well, they didn't say nothing about just how about starving kids, you know what I mean? They did tell me that it would take longer if you did not give a password. They mentioned that they have software that they can do that. We'll see. So if it takes longer, then it takes longer. We don't know if that's a threat or not. But the other thing I want to add is that I asked for legal counsel many, many times. I said, can I have legal counsel? They said no. And I said, I hear you, but I would really like to have legal counsel. I said, no, please unlock the phone. I said, I'm not going to lock the phone until I speak to legal counsel. You may be 100% right, but I'm going to feel more comfortable first. So I want to let you know that they said they have warrantless search powers. Maybe they're right, maybe they're not, but that's what they said.
Okay, so real quick, anything regarding any country that is not favored by the United States, they're going to treat you like a criminal going in and out. It's just the way it is. I mean, trust me, I flew to Brazil, for instance, and they treated me like as if I was an actual grade A fucking felon. Yeah. Flying with firearms and weed or whatever. They treated me just like that. Now, any country that you're willing to go to as a United States citizen, they advise you not to go there. They're definitely going to make your life a little bit hell, especially when you come back. So they're going to do exactly what happened right there. Take their phones, see if they're talking to anybody within governmental officials, see if you're doing any type of. So I understand a lot of these things that are happening. I understand that they may not be even necessarily right, but it's definitely something that I logically understand why it's happening. There was another thing he said there that was a little bit odd, but I can't really remember in this very second. So it'll come to me.
So to the point, I understand that they would ask me when they interrogated me for half an hour. They had good cop, bad cop, first person, sweet as pie.
Totally.
I went through it all. I kept asking for the attorney. I understand what you're saying, but I think we have to look pre-2026 and post-2026 because the news here is not that they were pressuring me to open my code on my phone. That's not the news here. The news here is that they said you could open your code on your phone, or we could take your phone and we could use this software that we have, which has been developed in Israel, Paragon, Graphite, Pegasus, these softwares that when we send billions to Israel to kill Palestinians, then what comes part of that is a surveillance state that comes back home with the chickens coming home to roost. So I know this intellectually because I follow policing in America. I follow the Free Palestine. I'm Jewish and I'm for Free Palestine. I've changed over the years after learning more of my previous positioning and understanding how the policing in America and Israel operates, meaning like 50 of the top 50 top metropolitan police areas across the country. They go train in Israel and they use the tactics that are used on Palestinians and bring that back home to America. They're like direct links that you can find. And now that includes surveillance. So I knew this already intellectually, but now it's happening to me. And it's happening to me. And I think what every American needs to know is that they have the software to get in your phone now. That has been developed. And not only that, on April 1st, there was a response to a congressional inquiry, I think by Summer Lee, about this back in November. And there was an admission that we have this software. So, you know what? Everything starts abroad. We call it imperial boomerang, that anything that we do abroad to quote unquote catch a terrorist, imperial boomerang, it comes back home. And what's coming back home now, and I think every American should know, is that they can get into your phone. Now, I don't think they actually got into my phone. I could be wrong, because I think it would take a long time. I spoke to a lot of tech experts in between now and then. They could have if they kept it a lot longer. But I think they just wanted to scare people to open their phone and go through it. And maybe they didn't feel it was worth it. We were a bunch of journalists there. Chris Smalls was also there. The Amazon Labor Union activist was part of the contingent. Katie Halper's a journalist. Lavish, who was speaking, who does journalism in Minneapolis. So you had a crew that they wanted our information. That's what they wanted. So I don't think they took it long enough. And I did some background check to look on the phone. You could do a diagnostic to see the last time it was entered. Again, I could be wrong. They could have software beyond what I know. But they have that power and they can do it. And I think maybe by the time the year is up, I don't know if there's going to be a difference between what the surveillance in China and the surveillance in America. And I know it's a drastic statement, but I think that's where every country is going because the software exists.
Well, it's definitely headed that way.
Yeah.
Right. At bare minimum. So, yeah, it's something that we're all scared of, to be honest. A police state by drones and all sorts of shit like they've got in China is something that we're totally against. We're against even traffic light cameras giving out tickets to people. You know what I mean? So, of course. So you're not going to see a lot of compliance from Americans on that.
Well, one more add to that, because I'm a much smarter person than I was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, because I've been speaking to the tech people and the people who've dealt with these cases. And they said, well, they could try to get in your phone. And iPhones tend to be a little harder. You can't brute force them by running all the numbers because it'll shut down if you try to do all the codes, though they have many different ways. When in other cases, when they call Google, for instance, and Google has all these tech companies have huge contracts with America, and they say, can we get this information? Google just gives it to them. Like, they just give it to them. And most of the companies just give it to them. Or the email, there's an email that's known for its privacy. It's Proton email, made in like a Switzerland or something like that. They're known for its privacy. There was a case with a Stop Cop City, and America went to them and said, can we get it? And basically strong arm you. If we don't get it, we're going to do this and that. They're going to get it. Apple is probably the more reluctant to give it. But my point is, even if they can't get in your phone, the relationship between the tech companies and the state is so incestuous, it may not even matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen today where they're actually trying to pass a bill in Washington right now for you to have digital ID to sign into the internet. And they're saying
that's like a credit score of like, hey, have you behaved yourself enough to be on the internet? Yeah.
Right. Wow. And they try to use the whole tactic as in it's supposed to be for your safety and keep people from impersonating you and all that, which we've talked about this on numerous shows. I mean, months ago.
Keep criminals off the internet.
Yeah. But this is usually what happens. They put it on to being where it's beneficial for you to do it this way.
Right. It's convenient.
Right. But it's been convenient doing it the way we're doing it right now. You know what I mean? And it hasn't been a problem. And
we're all wearing an ankle bracelet, if you really think about it.
Right.
Yeah, it's right here.
Yeah. Which you've probably done many shows on.
Oh, yeah. This is our ankle bracelet right here.
Yeah. So you talk about that, and then they talk about the control grid, and then they talk about like even over in Europe right now when they're doing the rationing and stuff, and they was talking about doing it, having it to where it was, and then they was rationing it out based on the information that was given to them as to how many people were in your family, this, that, and the third. So this is going right along with what we've been talking about for a while now, dealing with the whole CBDC, digital currencies, all this other stuff. Everything kind of rolls up into one. And one of the main things that I had said back months ago is that if you would initially put this into play, people would say no. They don't want no part of it. They don't want no dealings with it. This is in the Bible and blah 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 blah. But if you put it into a situation where they have no choice, when it came to you either eating or doing this, or you having water or doing this or whatever, then they're going to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like people tend to bow when they feel they have no other option. You know what I mean? And that's what a lot of this, that's what a lot of this stuff is. You know what I mean? And it's like, is this stuff going to get worse before it gets better? Absolutely. And it's going to do that just for that reason. That's just what I think about it. You know what I mean? And,
We agree.
And we've been calling this for what, almost a year now? We've been saying this?
Easily.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah, when I watched your show, I realized I got some prepping to do on prepping because I'm not prepped.
Yeah, that's right. That's how I feel like. You know what I mean? Like I'm always trying to keep up with these guys over here, you know?
Oh, yeah. No, I'm like, oh, I'm going to be on the first lot to die. I think I got water for a month or something, you know, then I'm done.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I got a well back here that goes for 200 years, you know? Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, that was a wake-up call.
I mean, even with that, like I said, I just seen reports today where they're talking about that Florida is going to actually be water restricted. Texas is going to dry up. They was talking about Corpus Christi because of all the data centers that's around there.
Oh, the data centers. And you talked about that. It's killing water.
Mm-hmm.
It takes up a lot of water, way more water than we actually thought originally.
Whew.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually seen something today where they were talking about over in Denver, because the lakes in Denver is basically almost dried up, that they were going to take the backup water from the uranium plant, recycle it, and put it into the lakes. And then, yeah, I swear to you,
Sounds like a Flint situation.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. You know, so this is this is stuff that they're not talking about. You know what I mean? This is the information that people need to know. If you know that your area is about to run out of water, then you know that you need to start making some plans to go somewhere. You know what I mean? If you know that your lake is getting ready to get polluted, or where the river is drying up to where the hydroelectric dams aren't even going to be able to work, so you're about to be blacked out over there. Yeah. You're going to have these power shortages. It is going to happen. But if they don't put this stuff out there, you don't know about it until it's already going on.
That's right.
You know what I mean? And that's the big problem that we're having now. You know what I mean? But this is also, like I said before, this is also the same stuff that we've been talking about for months and months on end, telling people this is what you need to do. You know what I mean? And right now, it's coming to that. I mean,
and billionaires are buying water all over the place, and privatizing it in a way that we've never seen before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they're buying the quote unquote land, but they're actually buying what's underneath it. Right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Right. So we're sitting at 113. So we're gonna close it down for the day. But I want to say this before we end, just my close, and then we'll go around. I'll do mine. We'll let Aaron go after me. Chuck, you can go after him. Just say your little closing remarks, and then we'll go to Mike to close it out. So at the end of the day, we're watching what's going on right now. Isn't just about Iran and the United States. It's about a fragile global system that's about to crack. One decision, one missed interpretation, one retaliation. Energy prices rise, supply chains tighten, and what started overseas begins to hit home in ways that we never expected. And the reality is, we're not just in that window that we could just sit out and just watch. It's actually going to come home to roost this time. Or this could be the beginning of a next phase where tensions rise, responses escalate, and Strait of Hormuz becomes the center of a much larger global conflict. Because history has shown us throughout the years that situations like this doesn't always explode all at once. Sometimes it builds, moves slowly, decision by decision, until one moment changes everything. So the question you have to ask yourself tonight is, are we watching that situation right now? Is the situation about to calm down, or are we watching the early stages of something way bigger than this, something that we ourselves couldn't possibly imagine? So I want to thank everyone for coming out. Like always, like, follow, share, subscribe, send this out. I mean, share it to your friends, your family, have them tune in, have them watch this. I mean, because a lot of stuff that we're putting out here, we're putting out for a reason. We've been putting this out for a reason, you know, and that's to keep everyone informed so you can do your own due diligence and be able to take care of yourself and your family. So much love to everyone. I'll see you all in 7 days. Go ahead, Aaron.
Okay, what I want to make as a point here, I want everybody to understand one thing. What we're experiencing right now, what the world is experiencing, is a man-made engineered crisis. Okay, and if what is coming is severe enough, then everyone needs to understand and know no one is coming to save you. Take this time right now to start to get the things that you and your family is going to need to be prepared, because time could be running out. Mike, if you don't mind, put that last picture up for me.
Sure. Yeah, we didn't do that.
Okay.
Here we go.
Okay. What I want people to see here, for those who haven't started, this is a 30-day resilience plan. You're going to want to have at least 30 days of stuff on hand. And then at the end of 30 days, you can decide if you need to bug out or relocate to another location. But this is a good plan that you can base it up on. You want to stock food and water, non-perishables, 30 days or more. You want to go with over-the-counter meds and prescriptions. Talk to your doctor and see if he'll let you buy 3 months at a time. Plant you a garden. If you got no room, if you live in an apartment, then use flower pots, buckets. Get your seed bank put together. Make sure you have backup power. Go with a dual fuel generator or solar. Have an alternative way to cook, like a grill or a camping stove. Have the means of security. That's going to be both lethal as well as non-lethal, because every situation is not going to require lethal force. Have first aid kits on hand. Learn how to use them and other miscellaneous items, because if you can control bleeding, you can save a life. Have firefighting things on hand, fire extinguishers, fire blankets, etc. Don't sit there and let your house burn down when you can put out the small flame yourself. Have a cash reserve in your home in case the grid goes down, you have no access to your money in the bank. Have it in ones, fives, tens, and have you some gold and silver on hand if you can afford to get it. Have emergency lights and the radios on hand. All these things is going to be key to making it through a bad situation until things get restored back to normal. And with that, I'll stop.
Well, Aaron, you definitely consolidated everything in the aspect of what we should do. Listen, we watch a lot of craziness happen around us, but what can we do, right? And you just emphasized that, and I very much appreciate it. Real quick, Miss Lotus comes in with the 10 spot, by the way, saying thank you for another informative show. Lord help us. Yes, we need it, by the way. So thank you for the 10 spot. We always appreciate it. And listen, guys, if you guys have not gotten ready and prepared at this point, I would say it's already too late. But listen, the thing is go out and do it now. Don't wait. Don't wait until tomorrow or the next day or whatever the case is. Get it done. Get yourself prepared, because your life is what is number one. Mm-hmm. So listen, I can't thank each and every single one of you guys enough for allowing us to do this every week. And we very much appreciate you guys hitting that like button, double tapping that screen if you guys are on the vertical side. Also, if you're on my side, make sure you guys go over to the Diamond Effect and make sure you guys go subscribe and show a little love to Archbishop and what he's doing over there. And listen, also, if you guys are on my side, stick around. We're going to be rating our buddy We got Bob from Biker News Canada who's live right now. So make sure you guys let them know we're coming through with the raid. Anyways, listen, thank you all for being here. Thank you, AB and Aaron, for your guys' expertise. Thank you, Chuck, for coming on to the show. It's always an honor to be able to have such legendary guests. So listen, we'll be back here in 7 days for more of the craziness. Until then, God bless everyone. Much love, honor, respect to everybody.